So this is Sourcetree. This is the tool that we're using, or the graphical interface that we use to interact with our source control system. I'm gonna, again, I mean, this can be a pretty complex piece of software, but I wanted to just talk about, just continue with what we were talking about earlier, where here, this view here that you can see is that the most important kind of places where we have to, let's see, let's close this out. Here we go. So this is going to look pretty similar to everyone. You're going to have the tabs up here if you're working on multiple projects. We're going to have some quick commands here that we use a bit, and then here on the left we have the workspace. And normally I'm spending most of my time jumping between the file status one and the history one, and then I'm using these buttons here. So let's start by just taking a look at the history. Like I mentioned earlier, the work that we're doing, kind of the project, or the collaboration in the project, is done on a timeline. So here we can see in the history this timeline just being visualized. So I can go pretty far back into the past, and I can see here that if I go to, let's just go pretty far, so February 15th here, then we have Snorri adding a gameplay cue in visual effects when hacked. This is from when we're doing the combat prototype. Here's a change from me adding a material function doing screen occlusion. That was pretty fun. So we can always go back in time and we can take a look at these changes that have the changes here. So if I click one of these, it's going to give me some information here at the bottom. Like you can see that like the author is here, the date, and the committer. Like that's just the same information that we have here. But more importantly, at the bottom here, we can see the file that has been changed. So here I'm adding a material function doing screen occlusion, and that's pretty much what it is. Under Camo1 project, content materials, material functions, I'm adding a U asset file called MF occlusion. So that's a pretty kind of pretty simple commit into the project, but it gives a pretty good information on how this is working. So taking a look at another one called updates to the tracked vehicles. It's not a great description. We should always try to keep the descriptions better than this, but yeah, but something to strive towards. But here we can see the updates to the tracked vehicles. So here in the file summary at the bottom, you can see that I'm adding a couple of new ones. The green plus here means that I'm adding new files. And that's the skeleton, the physical assets, and the actual SKM, so skeletal mesh. So I'm importing a skeletal mesh, and the orange ones here are showing me that I'm making a modification to a file. So so here, for example, I'm modifying the actual belt segment. So and then and the information that I have here is that I'm making an update to the track vehicle, but I don't know exactly what it is, but it probably made a lot of sense there. So this is just like showing how we can do stuff like this. Taking a look at the history itself. So I'm going to go back here to something a little bit more recent. I wanted to show. See here. Okay, so here's another one that I wanted to show as well here in the history. So I'm just going back here in the history, and I found a change by me that's fixing a typo in one of our build scripts. So one of the cool things when we're working with code, it's a little bit unfortunate that we can't do this with blueprints or things like that, is that the code actually shows you exactly what changed. So the red line here means the old data, and the green line here shows the new change, which is really nice with code, but again, you can't do this with 3D assets. So, but what I wanted to show here was that you can always right-click on the file in the commit, and you can do log selected. And log selected gives you all of the changes in the whole history of this file. So if it's a 3D model, if it's a material, for example, I think materials are a pretty good example. So if the material just all of a sudden changes, and it doesn't make any sense how like all it's broken or everything is pink or something like that. You could always go and you can find the file in source control. You could do log select it, and that allows you just to walk through the history of only this file. So that opens up this window here, and here the build tools are something that we worked on quite a bit. So I can go in here and I can just take a look at all of the commits and all of these changes by this file, by just this file, which is pretty cool. So yeah, that's basically how you take a look at the history. You have the projects here. You're probably not going to have a lot of projects, at least not to begin with. These, I'm going to talk about these in a little bit. These are kind of the quick keys or how you interact with this. The history shows us the timeline here, and in what order things are. You can take a look at who made the changes and things like that. And then you have this history here on each one of the changes. So yeah.